Fred Bear once said, "Immerse yourself in the outdoor experience. It will cleanse your soul and make you a better person." Welcome to the Rooted Outdoors podcast, where we dive deep into the mental, emotional, and spiritual side of hunting. And now your hosts, Dave Ashworth and Corey Bauman.
Welcome to the Rooted Outdoors podcast. I am one of your co-hosts and co-founders of Rooted Outdoors, Corey Bauman, and I'm with my good friend Dave Ashworth. What's up, dude?
Man, what is up? That is you just can't start with that question since we haven't talked in 6 years. You just can't.
Dude, I'll tell you, here's the thing. We're not going to mention the R word at all ever again. The relaunch of the podcast.
No, we can't.
I feel like we've done that several times. We can't. So look, here's the deal. We're going to do our best to get the best content and get as many episodes as we can out and get back into a routine after both of our lives have been just turned upside down in good ways and challenging ways too. But we're back.
We are back and I'm excited. Whenever I'm not doing it, I'm always like thinking about it and missing it. And then like someone will ask about it. And I'm like, man, like why are we not doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And then I look back and think like, if we had been doing this podcast consistently for years, like how many cool relationships we would have built and people we would have met and stories we could have told. And I just regret it a lot. And we got to change. We had to change it. I feel like we're going to talk a lot about obedience tonight.
Yeah.
It's a big theme.
Big time.
And I feel like we've been called to do this podcast in a very specific way.
Yeah.
And I feel like we just need to be more obedient in that.
Amen.
Plain and simple. So,
amen. I appreciate that. Hey, why don't we pray to open it up tonight?
I would love to.
We're gonna fly by the seat of our pants tonight.
We are. Nothing like a good prayer to start the podcast. So let me pray quick. Let me pray. Absolutely. Jesus, thank you for this time to get together just to chat. God, I know you've put it on our hearts to do this podcast and talk about important things related to our passion for the outdoors and hunting, but talk about much deeper and much bigger things as it relates to that. God, I pray that you will just continue to instill that passion in us, but most importantly, we just want to follow your plan. So I pray that you guide our conversation tonight. Pray that it will bless some people, challenge some people, encourage some people, stir some people up, whatever you have. But pray that you will just guide our conversation here tonight and guide our podcast in the future, whatever that may entail. Pray all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, buddy. My goal tonight really is to be and I shouldn't say that, we always are, but like is to be a complete open book as I possibly can and vulnerable and all that stuff. Because I feel like, especially as guys, sometimes that's tough for us to do that, and especially on a podcast that hopefully lots of people listen to. But
yeah, I
plan on being as open as I can, and hopefully people will kind of learn from my journey over the last year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you, I know we'll go into it deeper, but why don't you give us just kind of like, 10,000 foot overview of what's been happening in your life, where you're at. Not get into too much detail because I know that we want that to be, and I want that to be a big part of this podcast, but just kind of the overview as a starting point.
Yeah, man. Things are good, man. Things are good. It's been a crazy, I would say year, a whole year probably for like mainly just the career. And many of just because I've posted about it, I've done videos and put it on social media and try and share my journey with now what is Whitetail Properties. So many of you probably know what Whitetail Properties is. If you don't, it is it's a real estate company, but there's so much more to Whitetail Properties. They started in 2007 and they had a TV show. They still have the TV show on the Outdoor Channel, but essentially which I'll talk about more, but I was given this amazing opportunity to become part of the Whitetail Properties family and become a land specialist with them. And so I've been doing that now since, let's see. So I went through orientation in April, was out in Illinois, Pittsfield, Illinois, and then came back and hit the ground running. And it's been awesome. It's been incredible. It's also been challenging. It's, I've been, I've been down that road of launching businesses. And so it's like launching a whole new business with an incredible support and incredible resources and tools and brand and all that good stuff. But it's been cool. So that's really what I've been up to. And that's the only thing I've really been doing, right? It's like launching new business. That's pretty much absorbs most of your time.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. But man, I remember, and we'll get into it more when we first started talking, just how excited I was of like you potentially doing that. Like I feel like it just fits you so well. So definitely want to dive into that more. What about on like the hunting front? Like anything going on, anything you're working on, looking forward to, just anything hunting related?
I'm really looking forward to deer season this year. Not like I don't want to say I wasn't looking forward to it last year, but I feel like I'm starting to think about it earlier this year than I did last year at all. And I think that's maybe just because I had started waterfowl hunting a few years back, and that was kind of like absorbing all my brain space because I was so excited to like keep learning, and still am.
Sure.
And I'll do a ton of duck hunting, and obviously we have a dog. So, but deer hunting, I've been having a lot of conversations, probably a lot of just because of the space I'm in now and the industry that I'm in now, and the business I have is literally talking about hunting properties. So I met some really cool people. In fact, this past weekend, I went out and shot a 3D, not a tournament. It's at a club here in DFW, and I shot a 3D range. And haven't done that in a long time. I don't think the last time I did it was probably Total Archery Challenge with you at Seven Springs, TA.
Long time ago.
So just, shooting my bow more. In fact, just shot my bow tonight, like just getting into it, looking at getting a new bow, like just, I don't know, I'm excited for deer season this year. And I think getting back into it a little bit more than I have, over the past few years. And then of course we have our Illinois trip coming up in November, which I'm really looking forward to because that's a bucket lister. So
For sure.
yeah,
For
man.
sure.
How about you?
Good, man. It's good. You want me to start with
Well,
hunting?
yeah,
Or?
I was gonna say there's a lot there. Hunting wise, and then let's kind of go in reverse a little bit as to like, so hunting wise, it's going to be a little bit different for you this year.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, we moved in the past couple weeks. Whenever this comes out, probably a month or so.
Yeah.
So in a new area, I'll still hunt some similar spots, but there's definitely a lot of new spots that I'll be able to hunt. I think from deer hunting standpoint, what I'm most excited about, and probably turkey hunting too, is to just invest time in a new area that I know I'm going to be at for a long time. Where I lived before, I didn't really have like, a ton of public land around. Like there was some, but nothing like really close.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of public land around here that I can get to. I mean, one is literally through my backyard.
Yep.
That I can get to. And so like, you can invest time into that for years and years to come, and that like will just compound on itself. And so I think I'm most excited about like starting that journey of like some new places to hunt and learning some new places. Still gonna hunt the farm, closer to the farm. I have my own property here that I'll be able to hunt. I think around my property, what I'm most excited about is more the opportunity to do like some habitat management.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
not probably won't happen as much this year, but leading into the winter and then into next year, I'll start getting after some of that, and I'm really excited about that. I think there's some really cool opportunity there. And then our Illinois trip, never hunted the Midwest. We've made some really good connections, and then you transitioning to Whitetail Properties, you've got more good connections, and we're learning a lot about Illinois.
Yep.
And just excited to just experience that and be on that adventure together. That's going to be really fun. That's going to be really fun.
It is.
But I would say hunting wise, just this whole new area, exploring, figuring out like what I want to be doing around here. And then the habitat management on my own land, I think, is going to be the two things I'm most looking forward to.
I'm excited for the habitat. I know we've talked a little bit about that kind of stuff, but the more and
Yeah.
more I dive into that on my end and meet people, I've met some great connections, and just learning about just just different stuff you can do with the habitat,
Yeah.
trees,
Yeah.
just cool stuff that I'm looking forward to, like you being able to have that, like, that um I guess that, like, blank slate almost, right? Like, I mean, your property is pretty much timber. I mean, that's literally
It
what it
is.
is.
It is. But that there's a lot of opportunity that comes
Yep.
with that too. Like, it's the good thing is it's a lot of good timber. So it's like we
Yeah.
have a ton of oaks on our property,
Yep.
tons, which is awesome. Um, and most of what's around here is there's some ag fields a lot further down the
Hmm.
mountain. But what's around here is open hardwood. So if you can create some thicker areas or some more food, I really believe that you can have some good success. I do, because if you just zoom out and look at it, it's nothing but like open timber,
Yep.
honestly. And so just a little bit of change, I think, could have a really big impact, which is what I'm excited to like learn and tinker with and play around with. Because that's not something I've like learned about it some, but I've never really had an opportunity to do something like that.
Yeah.
And so now having to be able to do that, something that I'm really looking forward to like learning
Yep.
about. So
Well, I'm excited to get out there and just walk around, even if it's just come out for like a long weekend or something. I'm going to try and make it
yeah,
work. So,
yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to be out here. It doesn't feel real a lot of the time.
yeah, I
Um,
bet. So tell me
but
about like the house. I know, like, you're in the house now,
mhm,
but maybe some of the people that are listening don't know the whole story. So like, you maybe just, you don't have to tell the
mhm,
whole thing, but go back and like,
mhm,
what made you move out there? Did you buy a piece of land, and like, what was that
mhm.
process like for you?
Yeah, so I guess it was probably 3.5 years ago, maybe. We started tossing around the idea of like moving to this area. Emily is from here. My business was going more virtual, more remote, and we were like, we can really live anywhere. Um, I like the idea of being in more like uh, they're mountains based. They are mountains. They're not huge mountains, but they're mountains. A lot of trees, a lot of woods, a lot of ag field, and just like more space out here. Um, I just kind of was like, man, like that like fits our lifestyle a lot better than where we were at. And you can get a lot more for your money than you can back where we were from, which, Chester County, and most people probably don't know they're listening, but is a very expensive area to
Yep.
live in. And it's just not something that we were going to be able to do to get what we wanted in that area. And so we started looking for houses. We actually bid on 3 houses in this area. We didn't end up getting them. We came actually in second on all three, which was really, really frustrating.
Yeah.
But looking back was obviously part of God's plan for what he had for us. I started talking to a guy that Corey and I know, who used to have a lease company, hunting lease land, whatever. And I had actually leased a piece of property with him. It had to be 6 years ago, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know anything about this area then. I didn't know my wife. I didn't know anything. And he's like, hey, I have this piece of property in this little town. There's some really big deer. Like, do you want to go in on it with me? He's like, I'm leasing this one for myself. And I was like, okay, sure. So like he was sending me pictures of deer. I didn't hunt it that much. I did hunt it in a rifle once, saw a giant at last light, didn't get a shot, um but as I was I posted a couple things on Facebook, he reached out and was like, hey, you should check out this person, because where we used to hunt, they subdivided it and there might be some pieces of land that are for sale. And sure enough, like I got the list and I was like, man, that's literally exactly where I used to hunt. Like, we should go and check it out. And we drove up here not expecting much, and we got out and we are like, man, this is like really cool back here. And like, where it was, and like, it was all trees though. So it was hard to have a vision of what it
Sure.
would look like. Um we were like, man, like this, I feel like we should go for this. Like, this is like once in a lifetime. The price was really good compared to the market. The land wasn't even on the market. It was like a private sale that was just through this real estate person. So we bought the land, and then it was just literally a blank slate of trees. Like, well, where do you want to put the house? And like everything from scratch, which was a really cool process. We had an awesome builder. But that's where we're at now. So literally the ground that I'm sitting at now and living on was a piece of ground that I had a hunting lease on like 6 years ago.
It's crazy.
And it was like, even back then, I remember saying like, and over the years, if someone was like, "Hey, where are some of like the biggest deer you've ever seen?" I'd be like, "Oh, there was this lease that I had in this area,"
Yeah.
which is crazy. And so here we are.
Yeah.
And it's very secluded, very quiet. But man, it's just hard to believe that this is like where we're living. Like,
Dude, it's
really
so
is.
cool. I'll make sure that I put the pin in the
Yeah,
description on the
put the
podcast,
pin.
so everyone can come visit you.
That's right. Put it right in there. Come on out.
Oh no, man, that is so cool, man. It's been, I know you've had some challenges with the build and stuff like that, just like anybody does, but like I'm so glad you're there now. And I can envision you. I think about you sometimes in the morning. I'm like, man, I wonder if he's on his porch right now having a cup of coffee, just like watching his backwoods.
It's cool. So this morning, my daughter was awake, and we have just a couple like other Ring cameras, and I got a notification. I was like, that's probably a deer. And so I was like, let's go look out the window. So we go out back. There's 2 doe in our backyard with 3 fawns in the
that's
backyard.
So awesome.
Just like running around and playing. And we watched them for like 15 minutes, just like run around and play. And like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just like that. Like, I was watching them, but like I was watching her, and she just like was glued to this, and she's like, "Daddy, look at this, look at this," and it's just like, you can't put a price on that.
Nope.
Like you can't. Like that's like the coolest thing, and like she's gonna get to grow up like doing and seeing that type of stuff, and that like all of like the stress and everything we went through to get here, like moments like that, like make it all worth it.
Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. Man, that's what it's all about right there.
It was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to seeing all the memories you create there with the fam, and then we create too. So
for sure, we'll have some times here.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be the first one to shoot a booner there. So
that's right. Yeah, you're welcome to. I hope so.
Oh, this is recorded, so just remember that, guys.
I will. Everybody will remember. But so the house, and then also we had our second baby. We had a son in March. Yeah. So that like the combination of having a baby and having a 3-year-old and building a house, like to say it's been a crazy season would be an understatement. And now we're in the process of selling our house. It's actually, when we're recording this, it's getting listed tomorrow, actually.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I feel like we kind of have a light at the end of the tunnel a little bit, where like get through a couple of those things and like start to get settled, and then we can like, start to like just build our life here, basically. Where it's felt very unsettled for quite a while, because we are living at this other house. We're seeing this house being built and what our life going to look like, and it's hard to like feel settled in that season. And so I'm looking forward to getting settled in here.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a lot to move.
It's a lot.
I know how you are, and I know how you guys wanted to have everything, unpacked in a couple days.
We did pretty good. Crazy. There's still some left, but we're in pretty good shape now. So once get this other house sold, we'll be feeling pretty good, hopefully. So
before you know it, dude, you'll be driving your tractor around your property, just doing stuff, like doing whatever.
I can't wait for that. Just moving dirt,
just moving stuff, just knocking stuff over, putting stuff in, like just whatever.
The best. That's the best, man. I can't wait. Cannot wait.
So cool.
But let's transition into, like, I know what we wanted to have a big part of this podcast was just you sharing some of your story of how you got to where you're at today, because I think there's a lot of lessons in that. And so I want to dive into that, and I may like interrupt a couple
Yep.
times just to like, prod a certain question or a certain thing, because I think that there's a lot there. And I want to make sure that we're, touching on some of like the real spiritual lessons, because that's the biggest part of this whole thing. But I'll kind of just turn it over to you to just start from where
Yeah.
you want to start, and share your story, and I'll jump in if I feel like there's something people I think would benefit from going a little bit deeper on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Just a kind of like almost a quick backstory for those of you that don't know. So I was working for a company as a W-2 employee essentially, and was running operations for a company prior to that. So that's what brought us out to Texas, excuse me, years ago. Our headquarters was actually in Plano, Texas, and so it brought us out here. Before that, and where I met Dave, was in Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and I was actually in real estate for 11 years, in the residential side of real estate, when I met Dave, actually, and um, enjoyed real estate, but just had an opportunity, just an amazing opportunity to really just jump into a company and kind of help grow the company, help, put systems in place, help the hiring process, just do a lot of things where I felt like I could have a larger impact on small business owners, which is my passion, one of my passions, right? So I did that. We moved out to Texas and started a life out here. And
So I want to jump in there
yeah,
already.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
jumping in already
Oh,
because
yeah. There was a
um,
moment to get out here, I guess, too, right?
there was. Well, there's two. So Corey was my realtor when I bought my house, and there's some stories in that. So
Woo, flashback.
we won't get into that now. That's not what I was going into. But
Yeah.
the the move to Texas was a big deal, in many ways. From my perspective, looking at like your life, I feel like, and you maybe you feel differently, I don't know, but I feel like your faith took a major leap when you took a leap to move
Mhm,
your whole family to Texas. Like
mhm.
I can specifically remember having a conversation standing in my bedroom with you, and you told me this, and like, you know, it it like hurt a lot, because I was like, this is one of my best friends. It's like leaving, and we were like doing such cool stuff. But at the same time, it's like God's calling him to go there. I'm going to support him 100%.
Mhm.
And then to see that level of like faithfulness was very encouraging and challenging to me. But again, like from an outsider's perspective, I do feel like you taking that huge leap really did like have a profound impact on your faith. Um, and there's a lot of lessons I think to learn in
Yeah,
something like that.
for sure. And I'm glad you stopped there because, you know, like I was a believer before I met you, but I think like you have always been kind of that spiritual mentor for me. And I tell people that all the time, like when I talk about you and stuff, and I'm like, Dave's just solid. He's just, like, yes, he's not perfect. We're not perfect. We're humans, but Dave is always solid when it comes to like, asking for advice or things like that. And I remember, and I tell people the story, and you probably remember too. And I remember exactly where I was in Pennsylvania. I was in my car and I had called you up, and I was like, I was battling it because, we have all of our family still in Pennsylvania, and Bryn at the time Bryn was 3. I mean, she was pretty young, her grandparents were there and stuff. And it's like, man, we're moving, to Texas potentially. And I said, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like it's the right thing to do. And instead of like what most people would do and try and rationalize it and like pick it apart and see like why, what the reasons would be, you're like, dude, you just got to pray about it. Like you and Jen have to pray about it and just keep praying about it. And I was like, not that I wanted more of an answer, but it was the right answer. I mean, it truly was. And we did a lot of praying about it. And Jen and I did. And then we made that decision. Really, God made the decision, but we surrendered to what God wanted us to do.
Yeah.
And that's what
Which
got us out here.
which is a big deal, because like there's a lot of times, and I can think of a ton of times in my life where like I know God was telling me to do something a lot smaller than move my family halfway across the country, and like I was scared to do
Mhm.
it. But the fact that you were called to this such a big thing, and you were like, you know what, like we're doing this. Like this is where God's calling us.
Mhm.
Um, is
Yeah,
huge. Like it's so huge. It
it,
really
it was
is.
huge, and there was a lot of unknowns, but like, we were faithful, and we both had strong faith when we moved out here. And it's funny because now even I look back and I think there was times where God nudged me a little bit and said, not audibly, I didn't hear anything, but like would put in my brain that I didn't really move out here for the company. Like, yes, I did in a way, like that was part of it, but like there was more that was going to come. And like we've got really rooted in our church, and I learned how to like serve. And we serve as a family in our church, and like we got rooted in that community. And just, I don't know, like we were able to build a house here, and now we're in an amazing community here. And the things that God had in store for us, that really the lesson is that God has so much in store for all of us. And it's hard to see that. And it's hard to be obedient because as humans, we want to decide what's next, right?
Right.
And we do have to make
Right.
decisions, obviously, or else we would just sit here. But
Right.
that got us out here. And once we got out here, I was like, man, these things are just, all these things are coming into play, coming, and it was just cool to see.
Yeah. It is cool. It is cool. Well, that was a little bit of a tangent, but please continue.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got out here and, took over operations for the company, and, had a good run there. I really did. I had a good run, a lot of opportunities to grow. And, um, we had kind of gone through, I wouldn't say a restructure, but similar to a restructure of the last several years. And things were challenging. I mean, there was definitely some challenging times where I felt like, man, maybe I'm not in the right role, like maybe I'm not meant to be in operations. And looking back on it now, like I was probably in that role way too long. Meaning that I'm a very loyal person, and I was loyal to the company. I was loyal to the owner and the founder of the company. And so I was very much I'll do whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Just
Right.
tell me what you want done and I'll do it, that kind of thing. And what ended up happening is that I really am more of a people person, and I ended up working myself into a desk job, essentially. And I lost that touch with. We was a membership based organization with small businesses, and I lost that kind of personal touch, that communication, the relationship I had with the members and stuff, and I started to lose that. And so it really just became a desk job to me. And I was really trying to fight to see like what the next opportunity would be. And along that time, so last October, I was at a dog training event in Alabama through Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. We've actually had Josh Parvin, one of the owners, him and his dad, and Barton Ramsey founded that company. And they do member weekends, right? So you bring your dog, you do some training, hang out, fellowship, whatever. Well, it was the last day. This was in Alabama, and Charlie and I were there, and I was sitting on my tailgate, and Charlie was sitting there laying down. We were waiting to run. So there were different stations. So we were waiting. And this truck comes down the road and dirt road and turns in right next to us. And then as he's turning in, I see the Whitetail Properties logo on the side. And I knew kind of what Whitetail Properties was. Like I knew the TV show and stuff like that, but not really. I didn't know everything. And he pulled in, and guy gets out, and comes to the back, and we sit there and we just start talking. I was asking him questions about the company, and just you know kind of hit it off. We were just talking, and we had our dogs there. It was pretty cool. We exchanged numbers, and I didn't really think anything of it. I mean, we traveled back from Alabama. And by the way, James Walker is the land specialist name. So James, if you're listening to this, man, I really, that was the start of this whole thing for me, man. I just appreciate you. So if he's listening at some point, appreciate James for God just planting James right there at that moment. And I left, and I really didn't think anything of it. I went back to reality, to my life, and my role with the company at the time. And a few weeks later, James called, I believe James called me, and we just started talking again. And we really had no huge direction with it. I mean, I had asked a lot of questions about the company, and one thing led to another, and he just introduced me to a couple people at headquarters with Whitetail Properties. And by the way, while this whole thing's going on, like I'm still like, I don't really know real estate again. Like, I don't know if I want to go into real estate. And I wasn't like super unhappy to the point where I wanted to like leave the company I was with. It was just, there was some challenges going on with that company and my role there. And, you know, the I guess the lesson behind it is that as the months started to unfold and as the conversations started to continue, my wife really was the one that was encouraging me to listen to the doors that were opening and the doors that were shutting. Because there were certain doors that were shutting with the opportunity or the company I was working with at the time. And there was doors that were opening with Whitetail Properties, except I really wasn't being obedient. This is where the whole obedient thing comes in. I really wasn't. Like, I was open to it, but I was letting my, how do I say, my human loyalty and being really obedient to the company I was working for rather than being obedient to God. And I had some really good conversations. And like thinking back on it now, I'm like, man, those doors were like wide open. I remember the last one, Jen and I were talking one night, and I had just had a conversation with our broker in Texas, and he's like, well, look, I don't know, maybe there might be a territory open. They weren't even sure, right? And so I told him where I was, and he's like, well, I'll get back to you, And Jen was like, well, if there's a territory open and it's within, driving distance, I mean, it's there, it's laid out for you, And well, when sure enough, 2 days later, I ended up having a conversation. I got an email, and the territory is literally an L around DFW, and it's 6 counties right around where I live. And there's territories taken south of me. There's territories taken east of where my territory is. All those territories are taken. So there was like this L right around where we live that God carved out and said, this is your opportunity. Now go take it. Right. And the cool thing, I think, is like my obedience, I started to be more obedient. Jen was urging me to do that, but I started to be more obedient as I saw like doors shutting, and they were very clear doors, like very clear, like doors were shutting and others were opening. And it's interesting how, like, if you've ever been through something like that and you're really paying attention to what God's doing, it's very deliberate. There would be a door closed and a door open within, I'm telling you, some days it was within minutes. There'd be, this door was closing, and within minutes I'd hear something from something else happening, and it'd be like, hey, look, it was almost God going, hey, look, like, I got you. Like, it's over here. Yeah. I'm over here. Like, it's over here. Just trust me, and it was really hard. And you and I had talked a lot about that. And it's hard when you're with a company for so long. You put so much time and so much effort and so much your heart into everything that you want it to be. And you envision like that being your final stop. In some ways I did, I didn't really see anything past that. And so it was hard, but at the same time, it became more and more clear that, and there was times where I'd be like, why me though? Like, I saw some of the caliber of guys, that they were taking in through the interview process at Whitetail Properties. And I'm like, but why me? But what I realized was that what they look for is character and person and experience. And in fact, they don't really hire real estate agents. So I'm actually an anomaly. They don't hire people with real estate experience normally. They don't want that anyway, just because they want people with a passionate heart for the outdoors and land, and people that know how to run businesses. And what I realized after, as I was going through this interview process, that like these things would come out and I'd get like, well, like, I know how to network. I built a pretty big network. That's one thing. It's huge. I know how to build a system. I know how to manage people. I know this, I know that. And I've learned that all these skills and things that God has been teaching me over the years, and sales and different aspects, and the past real estate experience of being able to guide somebody through a transaction, which is the biggest piece of the puzzle anyway.
Yeah.
all these things came together, and they said, look, like, here is, like, God has given you this passion for the outdoors, and now we're going to combine this whole thing together. And I think it's hard sometimes too, even now, because, people say, like, they want to do what they, they want to work in the outdoor space, or they want to, like, work in the sports industry or something like that, but they don't know how to get into it. And they're like, like, it's just like, it's almost like it's a dream. Like, there's no road for it. There's no way to get into it. And I had this road, and I had this path that, like, God laid out for me. And we've talked about it over the years, like, how cool it would be to, like, work in the outdoors. And here it is. I'm here. I'm working in the outdoors. It's pretty cool. It's really cool. So I don't know what else you want to talk about, but, like,
Yeah.
ask
And I
away
have,
if you have
yeah,
questions.
I do have some questions, but it is cool, man. Like, I remember some of the first conversations, and like you were telling me about the company, and I could, you telling me about things at work, and I was like, man, like, I know this is a hard decision, but like, this is so obvious what you should be doing right now. Like, everything over here is closing, and everything over here is like wide open, and it like is, I don't know, it's just like perfect for you. Like, this is exactly what you should be doing. Like, everything that you've done and who you are and the way you approach things is like, you couldn't like draw up a better thing for you to be doing. Like, honestly, I don't think so. I think it's like perfect, and the solid company, solid, like everything about it's awesome. Um, I'm a little bit jealous that that's what you're doing. I do love what I do too. Um, but someday, who knows? But I think it's
Who
such a cool
knows?
thing what you are getting to do and experience, and I don't know,
Yeah.
it's super cool. One of the questions that I had as you were talking was, you know, one of the things you are and you talked about is very loyal, and that is generally a very positive thing. But in this situation, like you also mentioned, that it could be potentially could be a negative thing as well. And so I'm curious, like, just the dynamic of that, because I'm sure forever you just thought, okay, I'm very loyal and this is a positive thing, but it can be to a fault as well. So,
Mhm.
like, what has God taught you and revealed to you through
Yeah.
that? Like, I think it's one of the strongest traits you have is your loyalty. But what is God like teaching you through this whole
Mhm.
process about that trait that He's instilled in you, and how to use it properly and for His glory, and not take it to a point where it's going to potentially stop you from following His plan? And that not only is for you, but that could be applied to
Yeah.
other traits that people have been given, that maybe if it goes too far for certain things, it could become to a
Mhm.
fault potentially. So I'm just curious to hear a little more dynamic about that, because I think
Yeah.
that's a big theme here.
Well, I think loyalty and obedience kind of go hand in hand. So I'll just share just a little bit more in depth, maybe, of what, like, the struggle was I had a little bit, and what I
Mhm.
realized. So and I'm going to use the word provider, because I think that was one of the things that I really battled a little bit. And I think, you know, it's probably the number one thing that can be, when it comes to finances, right? The number one thing that can be your master if you're not careful, is your finances, Um, and I think the struggle I had was going from something that was a, not that I didn't like what I was doing. Again, it became a little bit more of a challenge, but it was like I was loyal to what I felt was providing for our family, which was this income.
Mm.
And I wasn't being obedient really to the Lord, because it wasn't the company it wasn't the company I should have been obedient to. And that's really what it ended up being. And that's why it made it really hard. And it also created a lot of stress and anxiety for me. And Jen saw it, and it was like I didn't want to like let anybody down. Does that make sense? Like I didn't want to let
Of
anybody
course.
down. But at the same time, I was like, no, this is like what I need to do. And what I realized is I was trying to be loyal to a company that gave me a lot of opportunity, gave us an opportunity to come out to Texas, gave us an opportunity. But what I really sat down and I was like, but God gave us that. Like God put that out there, right? And he
For sure.
said, this is for you. And when I started to realize that, I was like, no, dude, like you need to be obedient to the Lord.
Yeah.
And the Lord will provide for you. And it's not like I didn't understand that concept before. We tithe and all that
Of
stuff. Like
course.
I understand God provides, but
Of course.
man, when you have to go from a salaried position,
Mhm.
and I'm just look, everybody's got their own thing, but I'll just lay ours out, right?
Sure.
At 45, turned 46 in June, which isn't old, like I get it, but like 46, leaving a W-2, good income, solid income, job with a 9-year-old and a wife that has a photography business but didn't work. I mean, didn't like have a W-2 income, right? She
Sure.
works hard, trust me.
Yeah.
It like weighs on you, but like it to show true obedience is literally what I did. Right? Like it's like I'm taking the step and God will provide. And what it's really allowed me to do is honestly get closer to God. And I say that because I'm guilty of it. I know you probably are at times too, but like it's a lot easier sometimes to like when you're going through rough things to get closer to God or to have a better discipline in praying and stuff like that because you're praying for things like you need, when
True.
things are going great, sometimes it's like things are flying. God, I got this. Like I got this, right? Not God got
100%.
this. And so it's allowed me to get closer to the Lord, I think, and just spend that peaceful time with him each day and to really pray, and be really thankful. Like always praying for what God provides first, like just always providing. And it's starting a new business, and we've worked through some things and financially, like it's going to be probably a challenge for a little while, but I haven't felt stressed really. And I know that's crazy to say, but like I haven't really felt stressed. Like I love what I do. In fact, I've got a couple things in the works already, with the business that will provide income, that kind of thing. So once I realized that I just needed to be obedient to these like open doors that he was providing for me and just trust it, everything else takes care of itself, and just be a servant, like be a servant to people. That's one of the things. It's like every day, like I just try to, like when I meet somebody, like, just be, be, be a light to people, especially in the real estate industry, because there's just a lot of, unfortunately, it's just, how it is. I mean, the real estate agents just don't have a great reputation, which is why we don't call each other real estate agents. We call each other land specialists.
Good. Do
But
you need to change? Do you need to
yeah,
change?
but that is one of our core values, right? Is to actually to improve that, I guess that, you know, I
Just
guess
the way that they're
the view,
viewed.
yeah, the
Yeah.
way that real estate agents are viewed is to really to be professional, do the right thing, um, take the high road no matter what. Like those types of things are part of our core values, and I try and live that every single day. And so when
Yeah.
people go, "Wow, that guy's different," it's like, why is he different?
Right.
Because I'm in this industry, I'm in the outdoor industry, and I'm in real estate. So
Yeah.
there's a lot out there. There's a
Yeah.
lot opportunity to be a light. Let's just say
There
that.
is 100%. 100%. Um, man, there's so much there. I don't even know where to start. I don't even need to like dive in super deep. I think a lot of what you said speaks for itself. Um, a couple things that did stand out. And I think two things that come to mind. I think the first is, and this is for anybody, is like what is like your perspective on things, right? You talked about like provider, right? Like, are you the provider for your family, or is God the provider for your
Mhm.
family, right? Like God's provided you and I all of the opportunities that we have, right? We're not the providers for our family. He is. He's given us those opportunities. But that's like a perspective shift that has to take place. And I know for me, like sometimes you have to go through some stuff for God to be like, look, like I'm in charge here. Like, you're not in charge here. I can't tell you how many times in our business that things will start going well and I'll like be like, you know what? Like I got this for now. Like things are cruising along. And then I tell you, man, it's within like days that something happens. It's happened. It's been such a theme. Like, and then I just have to go back, like, God, like this is your business. You're doing all of this. Like this isn't me. Like if you want us to go to here, we're gonna go to there. And if not, then we're not going to. But just that perspective shift. And sometimes it takes like a huge leap of faith, like you took to have that shift in like God, we need to rely on you completely, not on me. It's not about me. And if you're calling me to do this, you will provide, or you wouldn't put me in this situation. And sometimes like how he provides is different. It looks different than we want it to look like. Right. I think it's important to remember too. But he still is going to provide. Like, and if again, that perspective, like even bigger picture, not to go like super deep into like this spiritual conversation, but like as a believer in Christ, like he's already provided everything. We have nothing to fear on this earth. We don't have to fear the lack of income or any death, anything. We have it already. We have eternal life. We're going to spend eternity with him. We don't need anything else here. But we don't live our lives that way. I'll speak to myself. I don't live my life that way most of the time. I'm so worried about things of this world and where this is going to come from and how do I protect this and do this. Like God's already taken care of all of that. Like he sent his son to take care of all that. All I have to do is be obedient to him now. That's the only job that I have now, is to be obedient to him. But he calls us to do things and take bigger steps sometimes to teach us what that obedience looks like. And that's okay. And that's okay. And I wanted to mention one other thing too, because you said something about, taking that leap and being obedient had like a major impact on you, right? I don't know the word you use, increase your faith. You didn't say that, but you said something along those lines. But to me, it's a lot bigger than that. Like when you're willing to take a leap of faith like you did, and then give God the glory following his plan, not only is that having an effect on you, which is important, that has an effect on your family, the people that are watching you. Like, man, like how does he have the faith to do that? Like your kids, man, like I remember when my dad like stepped out and did this because that's what God called him to do. Well, what is God calling me to do? That's what they're going to think about someday. That's literally what they're going to think about someday when they have a big decision to face. Well, I remember when my dad stepped out and made this huge decision because that's what God called him to do. Well, that's generational impact. That's affecting a lot. And then they do it and their kids are watching. Now you're affecting generations. Now there's outside people that are listening to this podcast, people that are family and friends of yours that see your life and see this step that you've taken, and are challenged, like myself, they're challenged by what you've done and this leap of faith that you've taken. That has a profound impact on people when someone is willing to take a leap of faith like that. And that can't be like undermined. We have to recognize that. We can't and I know that that's not what you were doing, but for you to just say like, hey, this has really affected me and impacted me. Yes, that is true for sure. And that's what you can speak to, but it is so much more profound and so much greater of an impact than that. It truly is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's why I wanted to share it, because I'm just just a normal human being, just like everyone else is, and we all go through different like walks. And and this is like a whole, I don't want to dive too deep into this, but part of it too is like I felt like as doors were closing, I was like breaking.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I felt like I was breaking a little bit,
Yeah.
and it was almost like, and when we say this, we talk about this, we've talked about this before, but it's like sometimes you got to be broken, before you could really go, that's the door I need to go through, right? And I think
You
I was
bet.
getting to be, I was broken.
You bet.
And I was like, it's almost like you have no choice. Like you have no choice. Like God's just like, you're
Yeah.
broken. Now go do this,
Right. Right.
So it's crazy.
Yeah. There's I saw it in church on Sunday. I forget where it is in the Bible. It's in one of the Gospels, I think, but God talks about the process of like pruning, right?
Yep.
And the process of pruning, if you think about it, can be a pretty painful thing because things are being cut away, things are being broken off and cut away. But if you want to grow, you need
Yep.
to prune that tree or that person. And so, like, I often think about that in times where like things just aren't going well, or just I'm not like feeling it. Like God is working most in those moments. He's
Yeah.
pruning you. He's preparing you for the next phase of growth, for that next growth, more fruit to come from your life. But that doesn't mean that pruning process is not going to be painful. Like it is, and it's going to hurt. And sometimes if you want to experience the most growth and the most fruit, you need to have more of a pruning process, which is going to be even more painful. And so that could be a challenge, but that could be an encouragement to a lot of people too. Like if you're going through something, and it's a real struggle and you don't really understand it, like God is doing something in your life to prepare you for what's next, for growth and for fruit. And we just need to remain faithful. The best that we can. And it might be an hour and it might be 5 years. We don't know. And that's not our job to know. We just have to remain faithful. Like, God, I know that you are going to take care of me. And I know this is the path. And even though it might hurt for, I don't know how long, like I'm going to remain faithful because I know what is happening.
And to kind of cap that off is like, just think of it as there is a testimony at the end of every one of those.
100%.
And some are way longer than others. That's what's hard, because as human beings, we especially our society, we want everything tomorrow. We want everything to happen now, and we want it to happen our way. And it's just not it. And God creates these challenges and creates these opportunities for us that then become testimonies if you're faithful enough, right? And he wants us to share those. Like, I believe that, right? That's how.
100%. And that could be through the story at the end, which is obviously always super powerful, but that could be during those trials too, how we react to them, right? And it may not be perfect all the time, but like we just continue to fight for what we know is right and fight for what God is doing in our lives, and people will see that. And
the one thing you're saying too, and then we can move on to, I wanted to go back because it was something I thought of when we were talking about provider, and you asked me like, who is a provider, which obviously God's the provider. Like I think of it as like God and our teammates. Like God's going to provide finances. Like just use that as an example, right? He's going to provide the finances and the revenue, but we're stewards of that. He's not on earth.
100%.
He's stewarding those things to us, and we do have to take actions and make choices, but we have to do it. We have to do it to glorify him only. And that's it. If our choices align with glorifying God, we will never go wrong.
100%.
So
that is,
we're teammates.
I couldn't have said it any better. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's hard to do.
It
It's
is
hard
hard
to
to do. Yeah. And I'm not
Very
saying
hard
like,
to do.
yeah,
But that's it. It is that. If you want to
yeah,
break it down, it is that simple.
yep.
Is like follow what he wants you to do with
It's
everything in your life.
it's hard to like give everything to God every day, but you literally have to
So
do
hard.
it every day.
Every day.
I had recently just had a salvation conversation with someone, and the question came up about salvation, and we've talked about this before, but salvation is not a once and done. Like salvation is like every day. Like every day you got to give it to the Lord.
Pick up your cross
Every day.
daily and follow me.
Yeah. Give your business
Right?
to him every day.
Every day.
So, and when you don't, it shows up.
It will show up. It will show up. That is for sure. I've experienced that way too many times. Way too many times.
Me too.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean like, again, not to go off on a tangent, but I want to be clear that like, if you like follow his plan, like you're not going to like, we're not talking about like the prosperity gospel stuff, right? Where it's like, if you follow his plan, you're just going to have all the money in the world and everything that you want because you follow him. That's not it, right? At all. But what you will have is worth way more than all that, which is joy and peace. And that's the only way you can get those things is by following his plan and knowing that you're doing that. Then you're going to have peace beyond the understanding that we have.
I've had so many like awesome just moments, and I know like you could attest it, I guess, to like just having a little bit more control over my schedule and stuff like that. But man, I've had so many like memories I've made since I've made the transition to Whitetail Properties, where like I'll find myself like fishing with Bryn, or taking a minute like during the week, like, and just like, I don't know, man, just moments like that,
So last question, and then we can start to wrap. But like, when you kind of get to something like this, right? Like you're here and you're like, this is where God calls you. Like, is there temptation to look back and like regret some of the path and be like, man, like, why didn't I do this earlier? Or like, why did it take me so long to get here? Or are you viewing it more like, you know what, like God was preparing me for this? And how do you like navigate that? Because like, I feel like it would be very easy to be like, man, like this is what should have been doing my whole life. Right. But that wasn't God's plan. So how do you like settle that score in your head? How do you go about doing that?
Man, that's a tough question. That is a tough question. I think, part of me, maybe not so much now, but part of me did for a little while ago, man, like you hung on too long, and I made it more about like the position I had at the company I was with.
Yeah.
And I think that came from like looking at the process, going through the interview process with Whitetail Properties and seeing that and going like, man, like I could have been doing this years ago. But at the same time, I know God did prepare me for this new endeavor.
For sure.
And it wasn't just the growth moments, it was the moments that were really challenging, like dealing with people and like one thing it's just something that came to my mind. But one thing I really feel like and Jen might say differently. I don't know.
Oh boy.
Listen to this, and I feel like I got a lot better at listening. I still am. I have to be intentional about it, right? But I feel like having a staff, for quite a few years, being able to like sit in my office and like truly like shut down and listen, and that was like always been a challenge for me. That really is just going to help me in life, right? Moving forward with clients and vendors and that kind of thing. But I've learned so much, and I feel like God put me in those positions to help me learn and prepare and get there. So ultimately, I know that it was all part of the plan. It was all part of the plan. But I think the human side of me, the thinking side of me, comes out every now and then and goes, but dude, what if you were doing this at 30? Like, dude, you'd have property already. Like yeah, of course that comes out. But
of course. Yeah, but that's like not your journey, right? Like that's not the journey God took you on, right? Like this is the journey he took you on, is very intentional. And sometimes like, you're not going to know all of the like pieces that came together, right? And the reasons for things. Like some things we'll just never know. Like for you, you probably will know a lot of it, it seems like, but there's probably still plenty of pieces that like things happened or the way things unfolded that you'll never know, but there's a
Right.
reason for it. 100% a reason for it. And maybe someday you will, but right now, like, you just won't know those things. And so, I was just curious, like kind of that, because I know that's something that I would think about a lot. Was like, man, like, why didn't I make this decision sooner? Or why didn't I do this sooner? Or what, but that's not like God would have opened and closed doors to get there sooner if that's
You know
what
how people say,
happened.
like, what would be like the one question you'd ask God when you get to heaven?
Yeah,
That'd probably be one of
that's a
them.
good one. That's a good one.
Hey,
Like,
like, were you nudging me in different areas?
yeah,
Like, was there another path
right,
earlier to Whitetail Properties that I missed?
right.
Right?
You'll
Like
never
that.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll
you'll
never
never
know.
know. You'll never know.
It's funny.
But at this point, this is your path, and
Yeah.
you're here, and it's really cool. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
So not really looking back, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah, you
I'm good to
can't.
go.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah, man.
Um, any other pieces that you want to touch on? I know, we went pretty deep, and there was a lot there that I think could, like I said, really encourage some people,
Yeah.
challenge some people, which is why I think that was the main reason why we wanted to dig deep into this.
Hmm.
And I would encourage anybody who is going through something, to reach out to Corey and
Yeah.
talk to him if you're at like a crossroads of decisions in your life. Talk to him, process, pray through it together. Like,
Yep.
probably he's not going to have an answer for you, which he shouldn't, right?
Nope.
Like,
I won't.
but can talk through and provide some guidance, since he, obviously went through it. So I would encourage anybody listening, maybe there's someone out there that's in a very similar situation, to reach out.
Yeah.
I think you would definitely enjoy doing that.
Oh, absolutely. Always open to
Yeah.
that, and just
Yeah.
love having new
Yeah.
conversations and meet new people, and
Yeah. For sure.
don't have the answers for sure, but I learned from you
Yeah.
just to tell everybody to pray through
That's all you could
it.
do, man. That's all you could do. It's such a simple answer, but it's what you need to do. And obviously, I know you're probably not going to, but I am going to plug what you're doing. So anybody that is, and this could be, and I'll let you talk about it too, but
Yeah.
like any state, anywhere, like they can talk to you. You can, if it's not your area, you can get in touch with the right people, help talk through properties, talk through transactions. Obviously, if there's someone within your region, obviously that's like a slam dunk. But I want you to take a moment and just talk about like connections that would be helpful for you, because I know people listen to this, and so there could be people that are worth chatting with or connecting with. So like that was my short plug for you to let you go in and talk about it, because I knew you probably wouldn't talk about it. So
No, I mean, I think it's important to talk
yeah,
about it, certainly.
yeah,
Because my goal is to serve people. Like, it's one of the coolest things I think about what I do is, um, while I will enjoy all different types of clients, right? I can envision myself really enjoying the person that is sitting there going, you know, I can't afford a piece of property. Like, I would love to have a hunting property, but I'm just going to lease. They just don't know that they
yeah,
could afford it or whatever. And like taking somebody like that and guiding them through the process and opening up their eyes and going, I can literally stand on this piece of ground, and like I can own this piece of ground, and this is what it would look like, right? So like
yeah,
being able to cast a vision with somebody and help them through it. But I mean, ultimately, I'm looking to really help people in the hunting space. I mean, we do quite a bit of land, different types of land too. So we don't do any subdivision, community homes, things like that, but we do country home. So if you know somebody, and again, like Dave said, this is so we're in 38 states, I believe, right now. But just if you know of anyone, or if you hear of anyone that needs some help, we love to be resources. We are relationship based. So even if it's not today or tomorrow, in fact, in the past couple of days, I've hooked people up with land specialists all over the country, 2 in Pennsylvania, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
You know, if it's somebody that's just looking for to answer a question about something, it could be the simplest thing. Connect them with me, and I will guarantee you I'll find them somebody. If we have somebody in that space, and even if it's a general question, we don't have a land specialist there yet, I can be a resource to them. Because it's not every day that somebody buys or sells property, but if it comes at a time where you do want to buy or sell property, it's not the time to start building a relationship. The time to build a relationship is now.
It's true.
And I would much rather just build a relationship. My thing is just how can I add value to people, and how can I serve people? So when the time is right, that I can guide them through that process, and we can stand on their piece of property the day of settlement, and I can say, this is your piece of property. Now let's go put some trail cameras up and like do all that. Like, that's the cool thing about it. Right. And so hunting properties, any kind of rec property. So even if it's, they want to drive ATVs on, they don't want to hunt, they want to fish, they don't want to hunt, like that kind of stuff too. We do timber, not a lot of timber where I'm at here in Texas, but all over the country, we do a lot of timber properties, country homes, so like 20 acres and above. We do here in Texas a lot of cattle ranches, so we do farm and ranch, and a lot of equine facilities and things like that. I want to say that there is a misconception out there that Whitetail Properties only sells big properties. I don't know why, but like people have that misconception. That's not necessarily true.
Yeah, it's probably, I could say from an outsider's perspective, probably because those are some of the ones that, like, if you look at like their videos on like their page, they're these like 400 acre Iowa whitetail paradise. And so you see a lot of those, right? Because they're marketed heavily, understandably, right? Like I would be marketing that heavily too. They're amazing properties. But that's a lot of what you see. Like, and I can speak to that being kind of more of an outsider. That's probably why there is that conception of like, hey, this is what they sell.
For sure. 100%. But I have one under contract right now that's 22 acres. Just pretty sweet little like waterfowl deer property. Like, so it's all over the board. And then lastly, I'll leave you guys with this, because I think it's important to know, because people do ask me this. They're like, well, what makes you different than, the other land companies that are out there and stuff? And I think there's a couple big things that make us different. One is we have a national network that's built through the national brand of Whitetail Properties. So back to like the TV show, the exposure that we get through our brand, through that TV show. That TV show is produced by a production company called November Studios. November Studios actually does our production on our production videos on our properties that we list. So not every property, but like a premium property, I can bring November Studios literally to Texas, or we can bring it to wherever your property is, and we can film for a couple days, and we can create this amazing marketing piece that that will sell your property, and we can expose it to our national network of buyers. That's the biggest thing. When you list with us, or when we help you, like, you're immediately being exposed to out-of-state buyers, which a lot of times when it comes to hunting properties, you're going to get an out-of-state buyer.
For sure.
And we just have a network like nobody does. We just really do. Like, our network is huge, and you get exposed to that when you list a property, no matter where it's at. It's not just a local listing with like a residential real estate agent. It's way different. I mean, we specialize in that. So anyway, that's the plug. But if you just have any questions, I mean, certainly reach out to me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Perfect. How do people get in touch with you if they wanted to?
Yep. So I have an Instagram now. It's Corey. It's just Corey_Whitetail Properties is my Instagram. And then Facebook, I believe, is, man, I don't even have it in front of me. Go to Instagram and you'll see my Facebook. If you just look up Corey Bauman Whitetail Properties on Facebook, you'll find it there. You can also I would go to social media and send me a message, either Facebook or Instagram. And my goal really is, like, with social media, is to bring people on that journey of like, what does it look like to walk a piece of property, educate people on different aspects of buying property, so that when you get to that point where you're looking to buy or sell, you go, oh, I remember Corey talked about that. Like, and you can go click on the video and watch it again, or whatever. just
Right.
educate people, because there's a lot that people don't know that they can do with. I'm learning too, but there's a lot you can do with a property and treat it like an investment. You can buy a raw piece of property and you can improve the habitat and you can increase the value. So it's a lot of cool stuff out there, and
It's cool.
I love talking about it. So
It is cool. It is cool. I love it too.
yep.
Well, any final thoughts here about anything before we wrap up our podcast here?
Not really, just back to the obedience thing. I think it's it's
Yeah.
a challenge for sure. I think it's just about just I think it's just doing an audit of like what you're being obedient to. And look, it's okay to work a W-2 job. Like, there's nothing wrong with
100%.
that. Lots of people do it, but just be careful that you're not looking at your boss or your CEO or your president or whatever as your provider.
Yeah.
Because he's not and she's not.
It's
The
true.
Lord is, and just be obedient to the Lord, and
Yep.
your life will be filled with much more joy.
Yeah.
Um,
Amen to that.
yeah, man. I
Amen to that.
appreciate you and appreciate your support. And I know many of our folks in our Rooted Outdoors community have reached out, messaged. I've gone back and forth with people. The support has been awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to helping as many people as I can.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how things go and what comes of it. I told you I forget what I said. What I say? I'm gonna like just live through you for a while because it's
Yeah.
gonna be cool. It's gonna be
Dude,
cool.
you got to get your pilot license. So I did have to get my
I know.
FAA
I do.
pilot license for drones.
So we actually might be working together a little bit.
Yes.
Because I've talked to some of the people, I guess it's them, right?
It is them. Yep.
About doing some filming for them. Just would be fun to like film properties and stuff. So
Yep.
who knows? We might actually be working together professionally. You never know.
It'd be awesome. It'd be awesome.
If you get a huge property in Texas and like they're gonna come and film, you gotta request that I'm on the job. Like Dave has to be on the job. Has to be.
There are some huge properties in Texas.
I'm
in
sure.
fact, the
I'm
biggest, the largest property that Whitetail Properties, I believe, has ever sold last year in South Texas. It was a huge ranch. Huge ranch.
Wow, I bet. It's coming. It's coming
coming.
for you. And I'll be there. I'll be there to film it all. I'll be there.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. And thanks for everybody for listening again tonight. We're up against like an hour and 15 tonight, but we'll try and get some more, get some more regular episodes out there, and they get some guests on again. Now that we're our life has settled down a little bit. Life's always going to be life, but we're going to do the best we can to get some more episodes out for sure.
We are. It was definitely just like, for both of us, just like a little bit over the top of busyness, I would say. So it is always going to be busy, and we understand that, and we really need to be committed to doing this. But that was a crazy time. It was a crazy time, but
definitely
we're coming out of it.
We're coming out of it, and before you know it, dude, we'll be in the deer woods. You'll be walking out your back door, going to your tree stand, bro. Think about that. Let that settle in.
I can't. It just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real.
Well, it's so funny, and I don't mean to drag this out, but dude, I was still on Dave's trail cameras, which is awesome. I could see all the deer. And this other day, I see this, it pops up on my email notification. I look, and there's a doe walking in front of the camera, and behind it, you see Dave's back porch. And I'm like, oh, dude, that's a short drag. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild, but it's cool, man. I'm ready.
You won't shoot one in your pajamas this year.
That could happen. Get the like opening of rifle. Anything's on the table at that point.
Dude, anything. I might have to come out for rifle this year.
You should. It'd be good.
That would actually be really fun. Probably
it
go
would
up
be.
there because there's probably a lot of pressure on that land next to you.
Yeah, if we got behind that mountain, we could get into some stuff. It'd be fun.
I might have to do rifle this year, right behind the house.
Could do that.
All right.
We'll don't even have to leave the house.
No. Sit on my back porch with a cup of coffee and my slippers.
Yep, and a 30-06 is ready to roll.
That thing needs to eat something.
It does, dude.
It's been sitting in the cabinet way too long.
Yeah, we need to make that happen.
Yeah.
Make that
happen.
Right,
dude. All right, man. Well, we're going to leave it go here. Thanks everybody again for watching or listening or whatever you're doing. And we'll talk to you guys soon. God bless.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with everything happening at Rooted Outdoors.